So we have one weapon in the game, but it can actually transform into different forms, and each form of the weapon can be used in different ways during combat. And so some versions or forms of the weapon can be better for long range, more accuracy. Other forms are better at explosive damage and things like that.
The service weapon is an object of power that Jessie gets at the beginning of the game that essentially chooses her and allows her to become the director of the Bureau. As she's coming to her role, she's gaining all these different weapon forms with her service weapon and also developing her abilities, so that gameplay is working at every point to reinforce that at the same time.
Absolutely. So you can unlock a significant number of forms, but you can actively switch between any two forms at any given time during gameplay. Grip is the default form of the service weapon, almost more like a revolver. So that has higher accuracy, but quite a bit more punch to it for single shots. Shatter is more of like a close range, broader fire weapon, almost like a shotgun in some ways. And so it's really good for really close range damage. Spin is more of a rapid fire weapon. So it has maybe a little bit less accuracy than your normal grip service weapon default, but it has a much higher rate of fire. So it's better at maybe mid-range and then lots and lots of bullets. Pierce is really interesting. So Pierce is a really powerful single-shot firing version of the weapon, but it also goes through geometry in the world. So you can actually fire through objects in the world. So if enemies are hiding behind cover, you can actually shoot through cover to do damage to them. If you get really adept at using the weapon, you can line up enemies and take out multiple at the same time. So with this weapon, since it is very much like an energy-oriented weapon, it actually expends energy as you use it. So there isn't traditional ammo as you might think of it in a normal weapon. What you have is more of like an energy bar which can drain as you use the weapon, and then you have to carefully balance using that with your abilities. So as your weapon begins to drain, you may want to hold off on firing while it recharges and then switch to your abilities. But one of the things we wanted to make sure of is that players can go very heavy with weapons if they want to. So depending on how you use your mods and which mods you use, you can go guns blazing all the time if you want to. You just may struggle in certain ways because of how we balance certain enemies against weapons versus abilities. So along with the different forms of the weapon, we have what we call mods currently. And mods you can slot into the different weapon forms to modify how they behave. So if I was to switch to my spin weapon form, which has the high rate of fire, but maybe it has slower reload speed on that weapon type, I can actually slot in a mod that increases my reload speed. So I can kind of tune and adjust the mods to my weapon form to change how I want to play with that particular weapon.
And also, I guess, how you want to team that weapon with your abilities as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The abilities themselves are very strong against shields that enemies have. Their core health they can also be fairly strong against, but abilities can sometimes take longer to recharge over time. So they can kind of be seen as like a heavier, less frequent use. The weapons recharge a little bit faster, but they do a little bit less damage. So the weapons tend to be a little bit weaker against enemy shields, but stronger against the core enemy health. So by using my launch ability, I can immediately take down an enemy shield, and then I would want to switch to my service weapon to take them down in their health.
The idea is that over time, the service weapon has served the director and has potentially been many types of weapons throughout its history and life. So at the moment, its current form is a pistol.
Can you tell me how old the service weapon is?
No.
Very old.
Very old.
The variety of things that you can do with it and how you can tune it and adjust it to speak to how you prefer to play the game is the thing that I personally like the most about it, because between the combination of the different weapon forms and the different mods that you can use to change the behavior of those forms, you get a lot of different combinations that can be really interesting with combat.
Narratively, it's unique. Because it's really important to the oldest house, and it's important to the Bureau, and it's important to the role of the director. The gameplay speaks to that as well by, you're not in the habit then of changing guns, you're in the habit of forming a bond, for want of a better word, with this one gun that you then modify to suit your gameplay style over time, which is lovely because it's a weapon that you're tailoring to yourself and the way that you would like to play the director.